Hi, and welcome to another episode of The Innovator, the podcast where we take an in-depth look at innovation in higher education. Our guest today is David Andrews, Chancellor of the University of Massachusetts Global and Chair of the President's Forum. We'll talk today about something that's at the heart of scale in higher education, and that's state authorization and reciprocity agreements and the work that the Forum is doing to maintain current reciprocity agreements. These agreements allow institutions to seamlessly serve students regardless of where they live. Let's get started. David, thanks for making time to talk today.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here.
Hey, to get things started, let's start at a high level. As the chair of the President's Forum, tell us what makes the Forum unique from other higher education associations.
I think the most unique aspect of the association is our focus on working adults. And when I say adults, these are typically above the average or typical age of higher education students that are just coming. We don't have very many 18 to 22-year-olds. The average age is up in the high 20s for undergraduates and a bit higher for graduate students. So, and I think as diverse as our student bodies are, one of the most unique things is that most of them are working full-time. So 80, 90% of our students across all the institutions are full-time workers. So they're not stopping work to go to school. They're coming back and doing their schoolwork. And much of that schoolwork is integrated into their workforce aspirations. And the relevance of that is important as well. Right. And I think we all focus on credentials that are relevant within the workplace. So it's how do you deliver a high quality education to working adults, but also how do you credential that in a way that has the highest value? And often that's degrees that we know, associate's degrees, bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, but sometimes it's alternative credentials. And we're all open to that prospect of being as relevant as we can possibly be to our students.
Right. Right. The working learner focus comes through very clearly in the President's Forum work, as well as kind of the open enrollment, the open access model that the Forum has.
That accessibility is very important. And when we talk about open enrollment, we're talking about making education as accessible as we can to the largest number of working learners. And sometimes that's price related. Sometimes that's the delivery modality. Many of our students are doing their work at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning after they put the kids to bed and the family's sewed up and they've got their work assignments for the next day. So, that flexibility in how we reach students where they are is a defining characteristic of the institutions.
So recently, the Forum sent a letter to Secretary Cardona and to Undersecretary Kvaal to express support for SARA, the state authorization and reciprocity agreements. Can you explain why the Forum supports SARA and what the letter urged the department to do with regard to SARA?
Yeah, certainly. Well, the Forum supported it because 49 states have signed on to NC-SARA, and and I would kind of pressure anyone to come up with a list of other things that 49 states have voluntarily signed onto and agreed to as a good idea. And I think the bottom line is it's working. The states are working to provide reciprocity, which provides greater access to the students in their state for the type of programs that best meet their needs, and are governing that at the state level very well. So what we encouraged the departments to do is to provide any input to those states about how to make it better. If there are ideas to make it better, but don't take control away from the states. There's been some recommendations around governance structure and how SARA actually works, the mechanics of it. I would say they should continue to gather information and pursue that, but let the states make the decision. I'd also say that most states are not set up, don't have the capacity to do what would be necessary to go state by state to get approvals of other institutions working within those states for online opportunities. I'm in California, the only state that hasn't signed on. So the two institutions in the President's Forum in California, have to do extraordinary work to get approved in every state. But on the flip side of that, most states don't have the infrastructure in place to deal with universities other than the two of us who are going to every state. So there's a real strong rationale that the states have to make sure that we're being as efficient, because any additional cost related to that are going to get passed on to the students at some point in the process. And then finally, I would say these working learners are moving. And so we're constantly having to monitor which states those learners are actually learning in. And it's an antiquated concept to put place of learning at the center of a regulatory decision, when it's the only reason that we would be concerned about where they're actually residing when they're studying with us. And it's a great idea to move forward with the existing program.
So now you recently met with Undersecretary Kvaal in D.C. Can you tell us a little bit about that meeting? What were some of the issues discussed?
I think it was a great meeting because he listens and he's a good collaborator. He's worked with us very well. I think he asked the right questions about the policies being considered. SARA was one of those. Inclusive access to content was another. And he took all of our suggestions very seriously and asked probing questions when we responded. So I think it was a genuine effort to learn more from a group of institutions that have a very high volume of working learners that depend upon open access and easy, accessible programs that meet their needs and meet them where they are in their life's journey. And he was very thoughtful about his responses to those things.
So the forum sent this letter on SARA. Where can our listeners see that letter?
presidentforum.org in the newsroom area, the link.
Great. Well, David, thanks for coming on. Thanks for the work that the forum's doing on state reciprocity. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.